Welcome back, everyone, to Navigating Adulthood and IDD. Today we have Olivia McGuire, the Executive Director and founder of Starting from Scratch. Olivia, I'm so excited to have you here today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here with you.
Awesome. All right, to start, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and maybe starting from scratch?
Yes, of course. For Starting from Scratch is a teaching kitchen supporting community and inclusion for adults with IDD, with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And really, we empower adults with IDD to discover their untapped talent and passion by developing independent living and workplace readiness skills modeled through cooking. Really, a driving force and a driving quote that we always go upon is that diversity is reality, but inclusion is a choice. And that's from Stephen Frost. And really, what starting from scratch is that to go back is that we can see that inclusion at times is not a parallel process, and I was able to witness that firsthand. So my father actually has what's called Usher syndrome, which is a disease that takes away his eyesight and his hearing. And he is resilient, he's unstoppable, he is the most amazing man, and he hasn't let anything stop him. So he lives the most inclusive life. He's climbed Mount Kilimanjaro, he's skydived, and he also, what kind of led into starting from scratch is his passion also for cooking. So he cooks for our family, he cooks for the community. He really pulls in cooking with community and the social context of cooking. And so I guess you can say that I grew up with a passion for people, and we're here today.
That's awesome. Wow, that's incredible. I was going to ask you, how did you get started working with adults with IDD? So it sounds like
Yeah.
your father was this figure in your life that kind of inspired that.
Right. Yes, definitely. So I grew up just again as like we see diversity, but we choose to include. And so really that whole passion also led me to support and advocate for individuals specifically with IDD. So that's where I went to school for it at UNC in Greeley with my undergrad, and then through my master's at CU Denver. And that was also in special education, but a focus on culturally and linguistically diverse education. And then it just went above and beyond from there. And through teaching at actually Pomona High School as their significant support needs program teacher for several years. And now it just excites me to have the opportunity to further a community where the individual's talents and capabilities are valued and celebrated.
That's awesome. You just have this awesome energy when you're talking about your passion that's like super contagious. So I'm just excited hearing about your work and excited to dive in a little more.
Oh gosh, good. Thank you.
So, and then again, this was touched in a little bit in your introduction. So why cooking? And what aspects about cooking or the way maybe you present cooking makes it accessible and engaging and important to adults with IDD?
My goodness, I could go on about that, but let me
Go
just
for
stay
it.
with okay, let me stay with this. Is that there's the development in the cooking capacity, and there's a couple different avenues where that relates. So the first one is the fulfillment of important functional skills, and that can lead and allows for an independent life. But then there's also the collective and cultural aspects of food, and that allows for the community participation. So again, with cooking, with starting from scratch, we focus on independent living and workplace readiness skills, and we do that modeled through cooking. Our program is built on our 6 areas of focus, and that is safety, hygiene, communication, decision making, self-leadership, and planning and executing. And with that, we have each of those 6 areas of focus relates to the development of skills in the home, the kitchen, the community, and work setting. So we're really basing those in order to support, again, the inclusion, the community, and the development of these individuals that we serve. Cooking specifically, there's a few different approaches that we have also been taking, and effective teaching methodologies that we're taking. And so I say the first thing is that we're applying cooking through the experiential process. So instead of saying, you can watch me do this, they are getting to experiment and do it themselves, which is so important. It allows for individual routes of progression. It allows for decision making and follow through. The opportunity to make choices when that might not have been an option before. It really allows for them and the individuals to authentically participate rather than just observe, as I was talking about. And then it exercises skills on an ongoing basis. So what we've applied into our program specifically too is just the adjustments, and we understand what the population that we're working with, and that adjustments are needed. And that could be food safety, it could be the physical safety concerns, maybe it's motor, cognitive, or learning disabilities, food preferences, or sensory needs. So we're taking all of those into account when we're thinking about our curriculum and how we can best support independent living and workplace readiness skills modeled through cooking.
That's awesome. Oh, there's so many good things in there. Just going back, you were talking about how food has that cultural aspect for community, and that's so true. And that just makes me think about my work too with music, and how these avenues can connect people, you know, just by any kind of ability or, you know, or disability in their lives. And and for food especially, everyone eats. So it's cool that you can make that accessible for people, and take in consideration like the sensory needs too, especially with a lot of tactile, I would imagine, right?
Yes, yes, exactly. Most definitely. And it's just, I agree to your point as well with, it's even with the music as it's just building that community, and it's appreciating everybody's differences, and then how can we come together as one based on those.
Awesome, awesome. All right, let's see. And this goes right into the next question I had. So from your work I've seen and what you've just been talking about, starting from scratch is such this like strong community. So how as professionals do you think we could create and support inclusion and community? And kind of like what tips would you have for people listening and how they can create their own communities or their own cultures of inclusion as well?
That is a great question, Bonnie. Thank you for asking that. I truly think that it stems from appreciating individual strengths. We have to identify the strength and where the individual, whomever it might be, can best serve to be a thriving member of the Colorado community. So how can everybody can, but what is specific to them that makes them important and have the ability to serve? So I think it's important to note as well too, that where the goal might not be full independence for some, we have to understand that we as a community are opening the window of growth and opportunity for them to find independence at their best, whatever that might look like. So it's truly that authentic independence, opening a mindset to include. And I'll just give you an example. I had an individual, she was through transition, past 21, and it was the what's next? What do I do? Where do I go? How can I keep developing my skills? And she really wanted to be included. And so by time just sitting in her room or not doing anything, by the time that we had connected, it was so amazing to see that she was able to then have 3 volunteer positions at a gym. She was at a horse stable, and her strength just flourished, and she flourished. And then we were able to work more one-on-one, and now she is working in the kitchen with her family. She's included. She's coming down from her room. She's making her own snacks. She's participating in something that some people might have said no to, but we had those community members to say yes, and it's making an impact for them and for her.
Yay. Oh, that's awesome. And like kind of like coming off of that, I feel like a lot of times with individuals with disabilities, maybe especially individuals with autism, people don't focus, instead of focusing on the strength, just kind of society focuses on the weaknesses. And so, especially, and with autism and with the social challenges that people can have, that's when some people would say no to those kind of situations, like, oh no, you don't have the ability to volunteer, kind of focusing on those weaknesses. But I really love how you talk about focusing on the strength of individuals. And not only as a society, I think as professionals, we can get really stuck in trying to fix, which that's a dangerous word, but you know, but do, especially in therapies, focusing on those weaknesses to improve. But there is a balance of also being like, what are the strengths that we can build on and really focus and celebrate too.
I couldn't agree more, Bonnie. And I think that at times too, it's also providing our community members with the opportunity to feel as we are one, and for them to recognize individuals and recognize diversity so they can support inclusion. At times, I feel like some of our community members might feel like they don't have the knowledge to support, or they need extra support. So what does that look like? And, you know, we're here to support, to help break down those biases, those barriers, and really bring that community with the knowledge that even people feel, I don't want that to sound negative, but that people feel comfortable to include.
Yeah, and I mean, I think you're touching on a good point that if things in the community don't have the training, they are more hesitant to add like those volunteers with IDD or disabilities. And so it's almost kind of like, how as a community can we maybe provide resources, provide support if they don't, and then as you're saying, really celebrate inclusion and let people know like it's okay to like give them this chance to focus on their strengths. Because yeah, that's a really good point, because I feel like inside our bubble there's a lot of inclusion, there's a lot of incredible things going on, so it's kind of like, how can we make that next step for the community? And I think that's a discussion question a little bigger than the episode too.
I understand that. Maybe that's down the line, right?
But I do think what you said about focusing on strengths is something that professionals and people in the community, that could be a good starting point at least, and really just building off of those strengths.
Yeah, thank you for highlighting that. I think it's important as well.
Awesome. Yeah, I wonder what we could do to provide more resources for those kind of opportunities in the community.
Well, I know there's a national movement called Employment First that came to Colorado just a bit ago. And so just educating, I think, the businesses and the community members around, and then the more that we expose ourselves and highlight the amazing people that we work with, I think it'll really come full circle here. And I think that big changes are being made, and it's a critical time, and the time is now.
Awesome. And thank you so much for sharing that resource. I'll make sure that that's included in the show notes so that I could look into it more, but and our listeners can too, because I actually haven't heard of that yet. So yeah, that's awesome. All right. Ooh, we just talked about the strengths. So you work with a lot of adults that transition from high school. And as we know as professionals, that can be very difficult for individuals with IDD. Watching kind of my sister, you see like a lot of just supports get lost, because in the early childhood and in school, there's just like support. And then the graduation happens and there's still support, but it's just harder to get connected to those avenues.
Sure.
So, but you're one of those avenues, and you work on independent living skills and workplace readiness. So could you talk more on that, and what kind of skills do you do for adults in transition?
Sure. So I'll go back even to say so that we are actually, and this goes a little off of your question, but I will come back.
It's all
So
good.
when we are starting from scratch is a project of the Colorado Nonprofit Development Center. And in November of 2019, that's when we got brought on. That's when we began. And our full launch was planned the end of March 30th,
Oh no.
in person. So we had to make a quick pivot with our programming to say, okay, we're not putting this in person right now. That's not what we can do in our community, and that's not what our community needs. And so that's where we fully switched to starting from scratch online. So that is where we're at right now as a little pivot. But here is what I can speak to based on your question about our program and through our first graduating class of starting from scratch online. So the effective teaching that we hope to funnel into, or that we have funneled into our curriculum, is really for our adults ages 18 and up. We have, but really the ones who, even after transition, after those services say, okay, 21, now it's cut, to pay attention and to mold our curriculum on the attention to transitions for our adults, to provide them choices, to have task analysis, to avoid overstimulation, but to provide them with focused learning stations, but still the ability to communicate. And then, of course, rewarding appropriate behaviors. So we're trying to pull everything, what they still had some of that structure in that, K through 21, all the way to post transition and into that adult. So they don't just lose the structure, they gain these teaching strategies, plus what does that look like, whether or not it's into competitive, inclusive employment, or whether that's through some channel of independent living, which are very low statistics to speak on. Right now, only 18% in Colorado of individuals with IDD are in inclusive competitive employment, and then only 11.2 are in an independent living type of residence. So again, just really helping build those skills up in order for, on our 6 areas of focus, for them to continue on, and we're the stepping stone in order for a lifetime of success.
Awesome. Yeah. And that's so important. Hearing the statistics is really just like, it's like, I know them, but then like hearing the specific number too, it's like, because a lot of individuals want to work.
Right. And they bring so much to the table.
Yes.
Sometimes we just can be, have a blind eye to, and that's something that, we're working to change and break down these barriers.
Awesome. That's awesome. So what kind of needs, when it comes to workplace readiness, independent living, do you think that professionals could address, like across the fields, to kind of help this post-high school period of life? And you talked about structure, so I feel like that could be one avenue too, like making sure the structure is still there as they're learning skills. Do you have any other ideas?
Gosh, how can we continue that? And that now my brain is turning, and here's what we have, but to say this to other people, I think it's different. It's, how do we teach the people? And that's where I'm like, oh gosh, I know how to teach our population, but it goes beyond that.
Right.
So will you just repeat that one more time, the question, so I understand it?
Yeah. So what kind of needs, what kind of ideas do you think that you've seen that professionals can address when it comes to post-high school periods for adults with IDD, and kind of help them get ready for workplace readiness, get ready for independent living? You guys are doing amazing things at Starting from Scratch. So what kind of advice would you give to other professionals or other people in the lives of adults with IDD to continue to kind of nourish these skills?
Sure. So again, I think it goes back into I mean, we talked about even before that we understand and we know that segregating individuals with autism or IDD, it erodes everyone. And there's such joy and importance of nurturing these talents and of these individuals and truly just allowing their magic to shine. And the way that we can do that is, again, through educating other community members, for helping our individuals with IDD continue with that structure, to continue with what do they need personally, because it's, again, it's independence at your best. So what does it look like for them? Because I mean, everybody is going to have different needs and different support structures. So what does that specifically look for them, and how can we help these individuals advocate for themselves in order to be able to say, this is what I need? And how can we as a community listen and then tie into those needs and support those needs? And I think, again, there's just sometimes that focus and the importance of preparing and teaching. So again, it's that preparation and it's that learning, and then it's the teaching that goes into them to, again, be thriving members of the Colorado communities or beyond Colorado.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. And I loved how you spoke on like the magic of the individuals and how it is going to be really individualized. And that as kind of a community, we need to be aware that that independence is going to look different for different individuals, but that doesn't mean to limit people necessarily, and kind of keep our minds open to the possibilities and potential that these people have, because they can contribute these amazing things to society, whether it's in a different workplace or in their independent living.
Right. I completely agree.
Awesome.
Thanks for that recap.
Yeah. All right. Well, is there anything else you want to share?
You know, I would love to share as well a few resources that have been extremely helpful, even past while we're doing our curriculum and then post, is that we have the Accessible Chef, which is an online resource, and that has all visual recipes, and it is a recipe generator, or they have pre-made ones, and it shows what tools individual needs, it shows what ingredients, and then it shows the step-by-steps, and it's color-coded. It's been really great for our students to use in our curriculum. And then also we have been using, and after starting from scratch, our 6-week Practical Foundations program, a Fresh Start cookbook kit. And that is where individuals, it's a full set cookbook kit curriculum, and it has different levels of recipes. It has weekly meal plans, it has safety, it has chopping. And so really it's a continuation of foundational skills, but it enhances our curriculum. So being able to say, we made it through the 6 weeks of starting from scratch online, now here's this additional resource, because practice makes perfect. So continuing on with that is really important for our students as well.
Awesome. I'll make sure those are both in the show notes. And I've been kind of looking at a Fresh Start cookbook even for myself as well, because it's like I could be a better cook. Like,
Right.
so I could probably use more foundational skills myself. So it's just such an important life skill, just cooking. And so I love that that's what you do with adults with IDD, because it's just something, you know, it's so relatable for every human. It's like we're all gonna eat.
Right.
So you get that community aspect, you get just that essential aspect of it. There's so much creativity that can go into cooking, so much self-expression. So it's just a really cool avenue, and I'm excited to share your resources and these resources as well with the audience.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you reaching out to share those resources as well. And yeah, it's just cooking. There's such a social aspect to it as well. And the development that can come from cooking is incredible. And even the following the skills and the recipes and the safety and the communication, decision making, everything that goes into cooking can be so transferable and relatable into other aspects of individuals' lives. and it's delicious. So why not, add that in?
It's delicious generalization. I love
I love
it.
it. Perfect.
That's so perfect. Awesome. So where can people find you?
So right now our website is www.startingfromscratch.love, and that will have all information from programming to about us to volunteering. And then also we are on Facebook and Instagram as well, and LinkedIn, and that's just startingfromscratch.love. And it's also Starting From Scratch Teaching Kitchen. That's another avenue you can look us up.
Awesome. And I'll make sure those are in the show notes as well.
Perfect.
Well, thank you so much for being on today. It was awesome speaking with you and learning about what you do. And I'm really excited to share this podcast with everybody.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Bonnie, and for having the Navigating Adulthood and IDD. You're really doing great things for our community, so appreciate it.
Well, thank you.
I hope that you enjoyed that conversation with Olivia. Not only do I feel like we touched on some important discussion topics, but it was so cool to hear about the services that she provides and the community that she's fostering with Starting From Scratch. Olivia was so passionate and articulate about the things that she is doing and about independent skills and cooking and just the cultural aspect of community. I really enjoyed her point that inclusive communities can start with appreciating the individual strengths of anybody with disabilities. And by highlighting their strengths, by discussing their strengths, and taking a chance on their strengths, we can provide them with opportunities in the community to be a part of the community and advocate for themselves for what kind of jobs that they want to be doing. Olivia shared a quote that said, "Inclusion is a choice." And how, as professionals, can we be leaders in the community to keep educating people in the community to provide opportunities for individuals with disabilities, especially when it comes to working and being part of communities, and really work on how can we get out of our professional bubbles and educate our community and to keep providing inclusion and to keep fighting and choosing inclusion, which I know is something that I will keep on working on too and look forward to discussing after this episode as well. So this month's session plan was a summer online group session plan for adults with IDD. It starts with Hello song, Hey Ya by Outkast, drumming, including found instruments at home, echoing rhythms, and following the leader, summer nights from Greece, moving to recorded music and possibly using at-home shakers or made-at-home shakers, songwriting to the good old summertime, relaxation with yoga to recorded music or beach sounds. The ocean drum could be nice here too, and the group's goodbye song, which for me is Na Na Hey Hey Kiss Him Goodbye. So for more information on the session plan and a little more detail on the implementation, is available on patreon.com/navigating adulthood and IDD. Recently, the community is now on Patreon 1 tier versus 2. It was 2 tiers before, and I decided to make it more accessible for everyone. Now, everything on Patreon is $5 a month. 1 tier, you get everything, which includes a monthly session plan with detailed implementation and available discussion and questions on the plan, as well as ad-free episodes 1 week early at least, and any extra supplemental material on episodes as well too. So if you're interested in any of that or supporting the podcast, please consider going to patreon.com/navigating adulthood and IDD and becoming a patron, which for this community, our patrons are called official navigators. So if you want to become an official navigator, you head over there. And that link will be in the show notes with the rest of the resources from this episode. I recently got my first iTunes review. So thank you so much for that review. It was from Millet138. Bonnie's killing it. Great music therapy podcast on a great topic. So thank you so much. It was really exciting to see that first review. If you'd like to support the podcast, reviewing it, sharing it, listening to it all helps so much, so thank you. If you have any questions or are interested in being interviewed, you can email me at bonnie@rhythmicrootsmusictherapy.org. Thank you all so much for listening, and I will catch you guys in the next episode. This podcast is by Rhythmic Roots Music Therapy, with content and music produced by Bonnie Hout. Thanks for listening.